Our sponsors for this episode are Shamrock Car Wash. Shamrock Car Wash has 3 convenient locations in Newton, Wichita, and Mays. They were also voted Best Car Wash in Harvey County for 2024. Shamrock Car Wash offers a traditional hands-on wash bays, but also touts an in-bay touch-free wash and dry for an effortless clean. Make sure to look them up and follow them on Facebook at Shamrock Car Wash. That's Shamrock Car Wash. Or you can visit them online at theshamrockcarwash.com. That's theshamrockcarwash.com. MTO Commercial and Residential Cleaning Services. MTO has been, still is, and will always be a locally owned and operated company. Paula started MTO in 1994 and has been serving Harvey County residents ever since. If you're looking for a one-time clean or a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly spruce-up, no need to worry. MTO gives free estimates. Give Paula a call at 316-288-9141. That's 316-288-9141. Absolute Drain. Look. No one, and I mean no one, likes it when their sink, bathtub, washing machine, or especially their toilets start backing up. It's even worse when they won't drain or flush at all. No matter who you are, it happens to us all. If this is happening to you, then you need to give Garth with Absolute Drain a call. Absolute Drain is located at 420 West Broadway in Newton and has been faithfully serving Newton and surrounding areas for longer than I can even remember. I personally use Absolute Drain, and they have kept my pipes cleaned out and flowing day one. It might just be time for you to give them a call too at 316-283-7264. That's 316-283-7264. Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Andy and Chad. How was your guys' week this week?
What's up, Gorms? I'm doing freaking fantastic,
Yes.
man.
Yes.
How are you?
I am enjoying the spring weather, absolutely 100%. Like I said a few episodes back, when the weather gets nice, I'm an outside guy. I want to be cleaning up the yard and doing outside projects and the whole thing. So I am my energy changes with the weather. I'll say that.
Chad Oledge?
Yeah, mixed bag week.
Well, you were busy. You put something out that said that this last weekend you were pulling a pretty heavy shift all the way around.
Yeah, I pulled 83 hours of on-call.
Took a deep breath and went under for a while.
And then as that wrapped up, I had to go hang out with Andy at the Board of Education. Now, hanging out with Andy's great. Hanging out at the Board of Education, not necessarily so much.
Dang.
Well, it's work. It's work, man.
Work.
And then I had to turn around and go to a county commission meeting that was, one of those. And then I had to go to a city commission meeting on Tuesday night. So, that's a heck of a lot of work between Friday morning and Tuesday night. So I'm ready for a little rest. And also in there, I had to get my family's main vehicle taken a look at, and I found out what it's going to cost to deal with the transmission.
Never-ending battle. Never-ending battle.
Yeah, ouch is a great word. So
yeah.
There
But your vehicles are old enough, and I don't know if anybody does this anymore, but where you can just go and you can find a transmission that's on a vehicle that might have had a blown engine or something, and then somebody can just pull it out in place instead of trying to revamp the whole thing.
I inquired on maybe doing some different avenues, but the response I got was, well, it's half a dozen of one and six of the other. We can go that route and you can save a little money, but if you go with the rebuild, all the work is guaranteed and warranted for 3 years, meaning anything else goes wrong, it's not mine to pay. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll go that route. I mean, it's gonna suck because I was shopping for a project car for my kid, and I'm probably gonna have to put that on hold for a little while. So it is what it is. So, if you got something sitting in your backyard, as long as it runs, if you got something in your backyard you want to donate to a kid going into the high school auto program, hit me up, folks.
Yeah.
Because, and honestly, I really think that's one place our community should consider really stepping up and taking a look. It's not that they don't have stuff out there to work on, because they do. They have a few things to work on. But at the end of the day, some of these kids, they're needing project cars. I mean, that's just the way it is.
One of the interesting things that transmissions used to be able to go and call people up and find 5 quotes quick. Nowadays, good luck.
It's a specialty.
You're 2 or 3 months out.
I had to just, based on recommendations of my main mechanic and all the folks that I know at church and wherever else I talk to, I had to have this thing towed to McPherson. And to
get your price point right,
when it decided that it was really wanting to get worked on, I was literally sitting in front of O'Reilly's.
Car troubles are the worst. Do you guys agree that
fun.
You want it to work? When it works, it works. It's like technology. As long as it's doing what its job, that's great. And then all of a sudden it breaks down, and you're just like, oh man, it's a world changing thing right away. Just right away.
It upsets the whole apple cart. We had to go scramble to borrow a vehicle from somebody else that we're going to need for a while, and we're very lucky that they're taking a trip for spring break. So we're going to be able to have access to that vehicle for a little bit, and it's a big deal. Yeah. And that old the other van that I drive, you talk about getting old. We're well over 210,000 now, so the clock is ticking.
Clock is ticking. Okay, so this week, I know Andy, that you're very involved in railer sports and little railers or junior railers as they call it. Just being able to, over the last few years, we've really worked hard in Newton to increase the ability to build a culture and a group of people and kids to move forward and hopefully be very productive in the future years at state levels, right? And I just got to say, once again, Harvey County is killing it when it comes to youth sports.
Yep.
I believe that it's both the Heston-Swather boys and the Heston-Swather girls have gone to state for basketball, and then the Halstead girls have moved on to state for basketball. So I just wanted to say, before we get any farther into the program, congratulations. You all, it cannot be stated emphatically enough how much hard work, effort, and perseverance it takes to be able to reach that level of success. And I just got to say, congratulations, Swathers. Congratulations, Dragons.
Moundridge boys and girls also, because that.
See, that was a little bit out of my view. But
there's a part of that district that comes down into Harvey County.
Okay.
There's a part of that town that's in Harvey County. So there you go.
Yeah. So people got to be looking at us and going, wow, time and time again, here we are up in state competition. Newton's killing it with the wrestlers, lady wrestlers. I mean, on and on. And we just keep seeing these successes come out of our communities. And I think it's exciting to me. I'd like for it to be the railers, right? I'd like to see the railers do it, obviously, because this is my community. But when you open it up a little bit and you talk about Harvey County, way to go.
Well, and we all intermingle, right? I mean, we all have friends and family in Heston and Halstead and everywhere else, Mound Ridge. And so at the end of the day, we're all kind of intermingled at some level. But for the county as a whole to be doing what we're doing and for our kids to be celebrated, it's so important because they deserve the recognition. And a lot of times we look past that because they're working hard too, and they're going to be our future. So yeah, I'm really excited about all the winning.
Absolutely. And hopefully all of them get college scholarships for their perseverance and their effort. And then they go out into the world, they get themselves an education either abroad or locally, and then they come back to Harvey County and just continue to have a winning culture, because them kids, that is a life-changing experience for them, and I believe that has the ability to carry on through the rest of their life. I mean, absolutely 100%. So everybody knows that I am an avid watcher of all things happening locally. If it's not the school board, it's the city commission. If it's not the city commission, it's the county commission. And last week, not this Tuesday, but earlier Tuesday, I was a little bit late to the party. I usually watch all of these via online, right? Everybody, you can do that, just so you know. And I watched the commission seems somewhat uneventful, but I was 30 minutes late. And somebody, asked me, hey, did you see what happened with the Harvey County Commission the week before? And I thought, well, not really. I mean, I know some of the things that were talked about, right? We talked about on the program last week about chicken pox and et cetera, et cetera. But somebody brought to my attention that there was some citizens that had stood up and said that Lynette Reddington should be terminated because of how this whole transpired. And I thought, well, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. So they told me, well, you need to go back and you need to watch it and just watch how this unfolds. Talk about it on the program. They'd really appreciate if we did. And so then this week I got on there because I knew this discussion was going to continue, and I was just overwhelmed by the amount of people that came to the commission meeting as citizens and spoke on behalf of Lynette.
So there was Don Schrader put a 2-minute time limit on each person's comments this week because he saw the room. It was full. And I recorded it all. My recording is 38 minutes long. Keep in mind there's a 2-minute time limit. And during that 38 minutes, and I haven't, sat down and counted how many people spoke.
Over 10, maybe 15, maybe.
Yeah, well, at least, because there were 2 people there to comment on the Halstead Bess situation. And they are incredibly angry about, they feel like the county is not doing its job. And they feel like, well, I don't want to get into all of that.
We'll talk about that on another program as it unfolds.
Because I'm gonna try and unpack all of that this evening or tomorrow morning, and I'm hoping to create a story for this weekend about what they were saying. I mean, just got to get it done. But the rest of that was about Lynette Reddington. And there was nary a negative word about Lynette Reddington. This was, and my headline for Thursday, I think puts it best. Public responds to call for health department terminations. And that's what they were doing.
That's
they
interesting.
Were rallying around Lynette.
Can I ask how, because I know we don't have too much time on this, but can I ask how many people showed up on the previous meeting?
Well, there was 2 particular on the previous meeting.
And then how many on the next meeting?
Like 10 to 15.
That's interesting. So I've worked with Lynette personally with some of my community involvements. So I am going to be biased here, but I really like her as an individual. And I've never and she could probably think I'm a monster. I don't know that because I've only...
She ain't that type of lady.
Okay, yeah. I don't know her like that, but I know I've worked with her on some projects and around her and under her, frankly, on some things that we had to do, and we had to be in communication with her. And I could see where some people could be upset because of some past things, especially during the COVID situations that were happening. But, understanding how counties and stuff had to function in school systems because of the federal government, there were things that I don't know what her leaning was one way or the other. She had to do her job. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I could see where some of that can be lingering and people could still be upset about these things because of how liberties and were being hurt, or perception of that. I believe it, but some people don't. That's teach their own, right? But she has been a sweet person, easy to get a hold of, and I have not once emailed her where she hasn't got back to me in her position.
Yeah.
And, she has so much going on in that world. I wouldn't even be disappointed. I'd email her again, but not once have I emailed her where she hadn't gotten back to me and been gracious and given me everything I've asked for. Yeah. And one time she sat down with me and another school board member and had an extensive meeting for about an hour and a half on a bunch of information that we asked her questions on because we were trying to figure out where we were with some things. And she was so good to us. And she gave the time and carved it out on top of her busy day. So anyways, I'm biased. I really like her.
So there's so interesting things at play, right?
I also don't know what's going on behind the scenes because I've been a part of the other side of some of this stuff. And if 2 people are pissed off at her, as long as they don't know what's going on behind the scenes and that's within the team, because you don't want information getting out to people unless they're starting rumors. that's not appropriate, because there could be so much going on without a city manager in place, or I'm sorry, a county
County administrator
that's there and looking over everything, because that leaves gaps and that causes issues. It really does with operations, and all these little things add up. And when you start picking away at a system like that, you're going to have fumbles.
When you fix it. See, that's the thing that I think that was the most important about the commission meeting a week ago, and then this meeting was, I personally think that when Lynette and I can't remember, Toby, is his name Toby?
Yes.
Okay, Toby.
Toby Harkins is the assistant director.
Okay, so when they were up there and they were getting questioned by the commission, I really felt like those types of questions and what they should be discussing should have taken place in executive session, especially because it was dealing with a lot of personnel.
I'll go one step
sensitive
further there,
information
Lance.
when it comes to a youth and somebody's health. Go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
I'm going to go one step further on you there. As soon as the public comment started focusing on a human being, it needed to go to executive session. Those comments, and I'm not going to name the people who did it. Some of them are people I've known for a really long time, respected for a really long time. That's taken a big hit. But as soon as they started naming people and doing things like questioning their qualifications, that needs to go to executive session immediately.
Absolutely. I got one more question. Yeah. Where are we at with that? Have you been paying? Okay, I know you pay attention to the county more than I do. I try to stay in my lane. Where are we at with bringing in another person to help run that place?
I believe that they are currently interviewing. I think that they have not made a decision yet, so they're in the process of that. Now,
correct.
They did have a couple executive sessions to talk about personnel issues. They didn't specify necessarily what those personnel issues were, so we could be getting very close to making
bringing
a
in
decision.
somebody.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
on.
And
That's
so I
cool.
know they've gone their interviews.
Hopefully
I know
help.
they went through that
They
whole
had
process.
2 executive sessions for personnel last week. They had 2 executive sessions for personnel this week.
Okay.
And they also had executive sessions for attorney-client privilege last week and this week. So, Lynette, Toby, new administrator, that's all in those mixes.
Yeah.
For all of those executive sessions. We don't know what those executive sessions were for, and that's by design.
Right.
There is a reason that this is an exemption to the Open Meeting Act.
Yeah.
So yes, and this week when the troops rallied, they made it very obvious. They understand there are two considerations here, right? One is Lynette as a person, which you spoke to.
Yeah.
Right? And Lynette as a person is, oh man, I'm gonna tell you what. It hasn't happened for a while, but once in a while she literally just walks up to me and says, "My son picked this up and I think you probably would like to have it." And it'll be a t-shirt. Her son is graduating from the University of Iowa, which is
that's cool.
my absolute favorite university, right? I've followed them for my life. And she knows that. And so she's like, "Nobody in our house is going to wear it. You want it?" I'm like, yes. Yes. That's the kind of person Lynette is. And then there's whether or not she's capable of doing the job that is there as health director. And quite honestly, she is.
Yeah. The answer to both of those is yes.
Yes, the answer is yes. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think of all people to speak this week, I mean, there's multiple people that spoke this week that I was like, yeah. Well, John Waltner was there today. Yeah. He's the guy. He is the former county administrator. He was the county administrator that hired her for that position.
And worked with her for many years.
He sat there and he's like, "I can't believe I'm having to come here and talk to you about this." Yeah, John, I hear you.
Yeah.
Great statement.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful statement, right? And part of that is all wrapped up in a week ago we heard she doesn't have a medical degree. She's not qualified. Well, guess what? State statute says otherwise, buddy.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand too, and I want to put a final thought on this before we move on. But some know, some don't, that I'm the at-large member on the Healthy Harvey Coalition board, And I have sat back and watched firsthand Lynette do an amazing job. Of course, she's just a piece of the puzzle. But even when you go into this discussion about whether or not this person should be terminated for this, that, or the other, there's two things. What we've talked about, Lynette is a wonderful human being, and she does an awesome job in her capacity, hands down. And even if there was a mistake that was made somewhere along the line, that is not something that we go get out the pitchforks, get out the torches, and go for blood. This is something that we say, hey, as an administrator, we need to correct this. She says, okay, I'll correct this. They correct it, and they move forward. So speaking of the health department.
And one of the wisest people that I know in our county, he is recently retired, and he moved to Newton. He had been working up in Heston. He's a very wise man. Made a statement in the hallway yesterday, and these are his words. He says, "I really just think this is COVID resentment."
Yeah,
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
And you know what? We all went through COVID. All of us. Some of us ended up with that virus more than once. Some of us ended up in the hospital more than once. Some of us didn't. Some of us suffered things that weren't just like the flu. And we all went through it.
Yeah.
You know, and within my family, I had somebody who had to quarantine for 30 days. It was brutal. It was brutal for the entire family.
Yeah.
All of us. And when I say family, I'm talking my mother and father on down through my nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
Okay? And it was brutal, and it was hard, and it was difficult. But guys, this ain't COVID. We learned a lot of lessons during COVID as well. And quite honestly, for those of you who have that resentment, it's time to drop it.
Yeah. Well, and things change. I'll say, moving on to the next topic here, that is in line with what we're talking about. Whatever's going around this year, whether it's remnants of COVID, a new strain of COVID, we've heard about the flu and the fact that the flu vaccination had gone out. It's only been 30% effective. I know everybody in my entire life has been touched by the sickness this year. And it most recently here, we heard it was really bad. And then everybody in my family got it. All of my kids got it. My parents got it. It hospitalized my dad at one point in time. But there was an article that was put out that said hospital bed shortages across the U.S. are at a critical level. So people are getting sick. They're going into the hospital. We're overwhelming hospital beds. There's no hospital that's left untouched. I've even heard of people that tried to go to one facility that is impacted so heavily that they have to move them to an entirely different facility 30 miles away because there's no bed space. I mean, does this tie in some way, shape, or form? I mean, when we talk about the whole purpose of COVID and really whether you like it, you don't like it, we have remnants of COVID, quarantine, all this. And I remember specifically them saying the reason that there was the quarantines and the reason that there was the exclusion orders was to slow the spread because in a like fashion, our hospitals were overwhelmed. So are we just seeing this spread of sickness be so difficult to manage because, well, I know I'm going to say it, there's no quarantine, there's no exclusion. People are done with it. They're over it. They're not going to deal with it. Whatever sickness it is, you're not telling me what I can and can't do. You're not telling me I can't leave. I can't go into the public. People are not taking personal responsibility, and now we've got whatever it is going around, and we're just not equipped to handle it.
I think you can tie anything to anything if you really want to.
You can tie it to arbitrary.
At the end of the day, I personally ain't doing that again. I mean, there has to be a really good reason for me to buy into it.
Yeah.
And next time, and I bought into COVID for 30 days because I was respecting people and I want to step back and watch. And after that, I was pretty done with it. Now, I did things that I had to do because of a position I carried in the community that I didn't completely agree with, but it wasn't the hill that I was going to die on at the time. And I really did play with that line of thinking, should I just go here? But when you have to put other people at risk, which is funding for the school district. I chose not to. But at the end of the day, that's me, personal stuff, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I don't know anything about the hospital bed shortages. I haven't thought about it. I haven't heard a concern in our local community, so I haven't even worried about it.
Yeah.
Well, you can tie it to some other things too. In Kansas, 63% of rural hospitals are at risk for closure. And depending on where you go for your numbers, we lost 25 or 30 hospitals last year. Not just in Kansas, but just in the grand scheme, right? I mean,
yeah. So as hospitals close, then there's less hospital beds for people to have.
Exactly.
Right?
There's different places we can go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can say, hey, Jerry, Ron, can you please protect our hospitals?
Yeah. And when we get into this, let's talk about, it's interesting that so we all know that this conversation and the state of political discourse and conversations and communication is at an all-time low, right? I pick this side, you pick that side. Many times the conversation's not even rational. It's not an actual back and forth discourse about anything in particular. And it brought me to we talked about last week about what happened on the Kansas House floor between two people, two elected officials, and how that's turning into an investigation. And then I saw a blip or a headline that said Representative Al Green was censured for his outburst during presidential address. And it just continues, in my opinion, this inability to have these conversations without it turning into cutthroat, irrational, illogical behavior.
Yeah.
And I'll say it. In full disclosure, I don't know whether I think it's fair or not fair, because, what Representative Al Green did is not something that is only what he did or only what the Democrats did, because
hey, if you can't take it, don't dish it out.
Yeah. There's been times where it's on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah. I mean, there's a message. That's a bipartisan message. You can't take it, don't dish it out. There you go.
Do you think, honestly, am I hitting on something here? Are we really? I mean, we've got vandalisms of Teslas across the United States. We've got all of these things that are happening, people acting out in what I would consider irrational ways that are really not justifying what they're doing based upon their belief.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get involved with those conversations anymore online because I've never changed anybody's mind, unless you come and sit with me and have a cup of coffee and we can break out things. I see people posting stuff that just not true, and I know it's not true because I've seen the spin up and I've seen them, and people are still using it in Washington on their talking points, getting their little sound bits and bites that they're going to push out for their campaign usage and for their narratives. And so it's a big pony show right now. At the end of the day, Doge is doing what it's doing and people are pissed off because they're looking for things to be mad about. Yeah. There is an $18 million a month facility being spent and paid for in San Antonio. That's true. It had been empty for they're saying 2.5 to 3 years. That's true. There was $500 million in a fund there that nobody knew what it was for. It's true. $500 million on top of the expenditures. All that's true. If you're mad about that, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to be mad about everything. And there are some things to be concerned about. Absolutely. We've talked about this before this happened. There was going to be some stuff. But, I'm not pissed off because people are trying to save us money. I'm worried that we're going to mess up in some places, but as long as we correct it and move forward, it is what it is. But people are looking to be mad. I understand it. It's a very sensitive political time right now. There is a us and them conversation that's dangerous because we can't even have a reasonable conversation when it goes to education. You're either on this side or that side, and it's not healthy. You either destroy it or it's doing nothing wrong. It's no.
Yeah, and where's the in-between?
No.
And then the issue with having this conversation in a way in which both people say, hey, I see the value. We all see the value, right? But isn't there waste? Isn't there ways and things that are happening that you don't agree with? Well, that conversation's not even happening.
Well, and we need to start having those conversations. I'm going to put something together for Chad soon, because he gave us the ability to be able to submit things, and he promised he'd put it out there for us. And I'm going to have a piece that I put together that talks about that conversation with some hard points in it for everybody, because I am mandated to help fight for public education, or I wouldn't be there. I will tell you that going into it, I was more on the other side of, this thing's broken beyond belief. We need to do something different. And I'm going to get in there and show them. And at the end of the day, I've learned a lot different with information that I have and the possibilities that exist in the public school system. And how dare me when I wouldn't be here without that system, right? And knowing what's happening in other places and being a little deeper into the subject, it does need to be retooled. We do need to do some work. We can't continue to spend more money and get less results for an ongoing period of time without some kind of direction change. But you don't, and I said this at the board meeting, we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We've got to figure out what that formula is. And to do that, we have to have honest conversations with on the political side, because the school system, unfortunately, has become politicized. It is still not allowed, and we need to break that wall down. And I'm hell bent on trying to do that.
Yeah, we need to spend money on educating our children, and there is a conversation that's happening right now. I see a lot of it on one side, and it's that we continue to increase spending. We continue to increase the amount of money, obviously, that's given to these entities that are schools, and our test scores continue to just go down and down and down.
And
so
there's some things baked in that are pretty common sense when you really break it down, which is I'm going to try to articulate it the best I can. And I'm going to spend, because there are some common sense things that say, hey, this is why some of this is happening. Now, there are margins in there that need to be worked on, but there's some automatic lifts in price for things and inflation and things that are happening, right? So there's automatic cost rising. We do need to figure out how we can get better with empowering our kids for looking into the new world that we're creating. I don't care what you feel about AI and all these other tools that we have available. It is just like the changes that have happened over the last 150, 200 years. It's going to continue. We're not chiseling on rocks anymore. I don't care if you like it or not. It's the world we're living in. Grow up, figure it out. It's not going to change. And if it does change dramatically, that's on each individual family to teach your kids how to do what they need to do as a fallback. Right? Yeah. But as a school system, as a society, we are moving forward in a technological advanced world. We've got to figure out how to empower our kids to do the best they can in it, and also set them up for careers that will be viable when they're ready to get out and compete. And a lot of that is being able to think on their feet and change quick. It's just not a stagnant world.
Well, there's a plethora, and I just got something I find interesting is recently there's been numerous, speaking of education, numerous, and I mean numerous, kids or young adults who are suing their school system because they graduated with honors, went to college, but can't read or write. So there is a brokenness there. There is a brokenness
there. Is, but here's the thing.
And I'm not ragging on the school system by any stretch of imagination. I'm saying
that drives
me nuts.
About
processes and institutions, and it's the processes and the institutions that we need to work on and empower the people to be able to do their job when it comes to educating our youth.
The thing that drives me nuts is how often stories like that one come out, and then we just brand the entire system. It's not about that school. It's about all of them.
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy. It goes to your point, right? That I mean, we've known for years. We pass these basketball players on so that they can go play college ball. They can't read or write. They can't do simple arithmetic, but they can dribble a ball. And we've also known for years that statistically speaking, your chance of getting into the NBA and making money doing that, oh my goodness gracious.
The lottery.
Yeah. You might as well be buying lottery tickets. You got a better shot.
A lot of truth to that.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was when I was in high school in the 80s, man. That's all
I
those.
smell mothballs in here.
You want to hear what the debates were? So the debates in education
started in the 80s.
Yeah, the debates in
running on my
education in the
diaper.
80s was about the basketball players that were getting passed on, right? And whether or not schools should actually buy a computer. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah. It was a fad.
Yeah.
The argument was it was a fad.
Oh, the internet, it's a fad. It won't. Okay, listen up.
Yeah, what we know now.
Yeah. And you know what? You can sit there and say hindsight's 2020, Chad. Okay, that's not an excuse for not trying to have just a teeny tiny bit of foresight. And even then, they were trying to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's just burn the whole thing down. Folks, if you want to really change, you've got to actually reform. You can't be the Nimrod from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou that says, reform, I can't do reform as an incumbent. Yeah, actually you can, and you better.
Yeah, we got something great handed down to us, and the world has changed, and we need to pivot right
Yes.
now, and we will, and we're going to. And
Yes.
I believe that with our leadership in Newton, I believe this, and I'm putting it out there, we have the people that can do it. We can make a difference. And I mean, we could be a model that other people borrow from. And that's the attitude of the leaders that are in position right now, is why not us? It's going to be hard. It's going to be gritty. We're going to have tough conversations, but it'll also be a lot of fun. And there's so much reward on that risk that we can take together if we choose to, that we can look back one day and smile and say we had something to do with that. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, and it comes back to culture. We hear culture a lot, growth, the knowledge that, well, we want to be able to be a culture that looks 10 years down the road and pivot early enough to where we can be able to have a contributing part of what the future holds and how we'll move along. So I don't want to pivot too. Actually, I want to. I didn't have this on the agenda, but it's worth saying. It's worth talking about. Maybe I'll throw one thing off and we'll just sit here and rest for a second. But it could just be my algorithms. But we've talked about culture. We've talked about our political discourse. We've talked about communication, even sports. But have you guys started to witness that there are a lot of, I don't know, unsportsmanlike conduct when it comes to our youth sports? And I don't know if I would say that. I would just say all-out violence. I mean, once again, I got into these algorithms where I saw a few of these instances that have popped up of one kid just going and punching another kid. And then by the time that kid punches the other kid, then another kid punches that kid, and then the whole entire stadium erupts in a brawl. Have you guys seen any of this stuff? I mean, there's not a lot of reporting on it, but is it just me and the algorithms that I'm watching that's tunneling me into that? Or do you guys see a real problem with what's transpiring at this level of anger, heightened frustration? Have you seen any of that?
I've seen more of it. That doesn't mean that it's happening every night. And it doesn't mean that it's even happening more than half of a given season. But I've seen more of it. And this is one of those things where I'm just going to say we have this is an area of our society and an area of our young people's lives where our parents are failing to the point that they are the problem. And again, that is not new.
It's just, man, you're saying it's manifesting itself in a different way.
I mean, you're looking at a guy who in 1994, 95 was umpiring Little League baseball and kicking parents out of games.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, and I'll tell you that, when you look at the bigger picture, what kind of example are we leaving with how we're handling things right now?
right.
And I did a little talk yesterday at a local organization. I won't say their names because I don't have their permission, but they called me in to speak to their leadership team about some things. And, my points were with some of the things that were going on in that organization, and the things that I was asked to bring to the table have to do with political conflict in the workspace. And my keys were, you have to have open communication, which we don't do very well today. And we open communicate on Facebook with no compromise. And it's a pansy way to debate if you're really serious and care about people, frankly, because I have not ever changed one person's mind online. And I've stopped trying. Every once in a while, I'll take a smart ass remark. That's just what I do. I try not to.
Just a little bit of gas on that fire. Just a little bit.
I'll spend a minute stewing over something, and then I'll let it go, and I'll move on. And I've gotten better at that. Seeking understanding. Do we seek understanding? A lot of us don't. We just want to talk to be heard. We don't want to hear somebody else. Focus on shared goals. Are we focusing on shared goals? Because 80% of us want the same things, but we're going to kill each other over 20% of the ridiculousness that we don't agree on. And most of us will share 80%, no matter what political sphere you live on, if you talk about life and things that matter. Do we set boundaries? A lot of us don't set good boundaries. And there is a conversation you can have where, Chad, our principles are different in this subject. And I'm going to respect yours and you're going to respect mine, but let's have a boundary that we don't talk about that, because neither one of us are going to change on that. And that's okay. You do you, I'm going to do me on this thing, but let's go focus on all these other things, because this thing is never going to go. I'm not going to change. I'm not trying to change you anymore. I realize that that's going to actually cause problems in our relationship. Have that conversation like a big person, set the boundary with those people and be done and move on. And care enough about them to respect that boundary. And if they don't care about you, you remind them about the conversation until you have to take it to the next level. But you got to set boundaries, and that's okay.
Let me give you an
agree to
example
disagree.
of that.
The last one was agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. Set the boundaries. Focus on your shared goals. Seek your understanding and have open communication. If you work that backwards from the top to the bottom, and then I work it backwards, agree to disagree, set boundaries, focus on shared goals, seek understanding, and open communications. If you can keep those things in line, you'll have healthy, high-functioning teams and communities. Us as adults, we don't do that anymore. And our kids are suffering because we become pansies that can't have hard conversations for the greater good of the whole, because we all want me, what I want right now, including this guy sitting in front of you right now. So I'm learning to take responsibility for my stuff to get better at those things. And that's why I have it written down, because I'm having to revisit these things and going, am I doing these things to the best of my ability? And a lot of times I'm not. So I got to rewind. And then those people that don't choose to do those things, you just keep them at a distance.
Well, and it all comes back to everything you just said has to do with communication. Chad?
Yeah. No, I was just going to give you an example of setting the boundaries, and sometimes it takes an assist. Right?
Yes.
It's a couple years back, somebody walked right up to me at church, and they just started talking about my job. And this is a Sunday morning. And I just stood, I was just looking at them, and I went, no. I'm not talking about that today. Now, if you want to talk about the challenges we're having in our youth group, yeah, I'll talk about that. And they just looked so deflated and defeated and angry all at once. And I was actually questioning what I was doing at that point. And from my right, and I don't even remember who it was, but it was somebody that was on the church board at the time, just stepped forward and said, "Good for you, Chad. Good for you. Bless you today." And the person who was coming to me because they were upset about what had been written in the newspaper just kind of looked and went, "Well, maybe I'll take this up with you on Monday." "Yeah, you will."
Give me a call. Give me a call.
Love to hear from you Monday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Boundaries.
Yeah, you will.
And speaking of...
So, yeah, you got to set those boundaries. And folks, what Andy's talking about in setting those boundaries, you got to set them in pretty much every area of your life. And if you can't set those, you also can't set those for your children.
And they're not seeing it modeled.
And they don't. I'll tell you this: kids don't listen to what you say, right? You know, this whole practice what you preach thing. Kids learn from your example. They don't learn from your words. I mean, the two can line up.
Yes.
But if you're sitting here saying,
and there's something else about that
X,
too.
Don't do Y, don't do Z. But then in your own life, you're not holding to the same standard, then you're the one that loses credibility with them. They're going to do what they see you do, not what you're telling them to do. And there's a huge breakdown there. And I can transition this over into this too, okay? We've talked in the past a couple times about Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine? This has gone on for many years now. I think the latest totals are over 1 million people are displaced, injured, or dead. I don't know which side, whether that's between Russia and Ukraine and everybody involved and everything, but this has become a stalemate of a situation where unless something changes, then nothing's going to change. And I know that sounds cliche, but unless somewhere along the line somebody does something to try to change this, then they're just going to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And I'm just going to say, I think the end result is that Russia is going to own Ukraine. I see this happening. It is what it is. We all, want to say, oh, we support Ukraine and that's great and that's grand. But are you willing to send your son or daughter to Ukraine to die in a war between Russia and Ukraine is the question. So a lot of stuff has happened over the course of the last 3 years. We've watched this play out. We were going to cover it a couple weeks ago and then just kind of ran out of time. But speaking of, the most recent things that happened where Zelensky, who's the president of Ukraine, came to the White House, there was a little bit of contention there. People started to draw lines. Everybody started to change their Facebook profile pictures to either a Ukrainian flag or Trump's face or whatever the case may be. Everybody picked a side. I stand with Ukraine. I stand with the United States. There's this warring entities that are taking place. But I just want to say this before I say anything else. I stand with the Ukrainian people just like I stand with the Palestinian people. I don't stand with the regime. I stand with the Russian people just as much as I stand with Ukrainian people, just as much as I stand with Palestinian people, just as much as I stand with people of North Korea, just as much. I'm for the people, not for government. Just to call that out as it is. Although we have to operate where governments are the ones that dictate, and many times, in many instances, what the people do, and we lose sight of this. But what are your guys' thoughts? I mean, the most recent thing that I read yesterday was that Ukraine and the United States have reached an agreement. And from there, then obviously that's going to go over to Russia. Russia's going to make the decision, see what they do. But it's time for this to stop. Agreed? It's been long past time.
It should have never started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? It should have never started. And I just gotta be straight. I do not trust, and I never will trust Vladimir Putin.
It's probably smart.
Well, they're pro-nationalists for Russia. I mean, they're going to do what's in the best interest for Russia. To heck with everything else.
As he should, as their leader should.
I don't, and I never trusted him, and I never believed the quote unquote motivation for this particular conflict. I really don't. I've never believed it. And so, I mean, are we at a point where there could be a ceasefire? Yeah, we're at a point that there could be a ceasefire, but we've been at a point where there could be a ceasefire about 25 times.
In what depth of time? In what length of time?
Since 2017.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
It's just...
I want the war to stop. I hope we're able to... The ceasefire will be the first step. Thank God less people will die, which is important. I wish there was an election in Ukraine, but that's not happening. And
it can't.
Well, it could.
It could.
It could. I understand the purpose of they're in war, so therefore martial law is declared.
That's written into their flipping constitution.
But they could change it.
Or, well, it is written into their constitution. It is. But they could have it, but they're using that clause that they don't have to. That's okay. But where's the other guy that's going to be running against him? What's his situation look like? And what happened to all the other ones before that? So, it's neither here nor there. It's the same thing as Russia. It's just Ukraine. He's doing, and he's jockeying. And is it him or is it people that want him there in power? Just like the United States does, and like they did with Biden. Who knows, right? We got to look at ourselves first, and we're a mess.
Do you think this has
Yes,
the possibility?
we are.
And we've got to fix it.
If this doesn't stop, my biggest concern
If
is
it doesn't stop, what's going to happen is Russia's going to take over Ukraine.
Okay,
Because we're not giving no more money. So we're done.
Yeah.
And the European nations better step up. And if not, they're virtue signaling and doing all those things. And I hope they're real. And I hope they get in behind them and do what they got to do, because that's less security for them than it is for us. And we're at a place right now where we got $34 trillion in debt. And we've got to fix our own system, or we will not cease to exist in another 10 or 15 years at the rate we're going right now.
Do you think this has the potential to drag everybody into World War III?
It's possible. Absolutely, it's possible.
Straight up, any conflict involving major world powers has the possibility of us ending up in World War III.
And I really don't believe people want that.
One.
I don't think leaders want that. I really don't. And it could happen. And there's nothing I can do about that. So it's like, of course I don't want it to happen. I'll do what I have to do for my family first and see how long we go if something like that was to happen. But I don't want to go that, because I can't change it. I can't affect it. I'm watching. I hope people do the right thing to the best of our abilities where we're at today with the war that happened, that I believe we spurred on at some level. But I don't want to get into all those details right now. But
yeah, it's not. We can't do it in an hour.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter until we bring somebody in. Let's watch. I said before Trump got in office, if he gets elected, we're going to see what happens in 2 years. Everybody wants everything last week. I'm pissed off about the files. I'm pissed off about the Epstein list. I'm not happy about that. I wanted to see all that stuff. I thought it was going to happen day one. But, in working days, we're probably at day 12 because you cut out the weekends, right? And there's been a lot that's happened. And we are negotiating things that we should be negotiating. And there's stories of people burning documents and shredding documents and all these things that are happening. And at the end of the day, now with the people that are in power, what is the excuse now? So in 2 years, I'm going to hold those questions. You said you were going to do it, Cash. Not only put that on Trump. And frankly, Trump is not a Republican and he's not a Democrat. I think that's as close to an independent as we have right now. That's the way I look at him. And I'm going, cool, you found a way to do it, but your people better operate, because there's some things that were promised that a lot of us really cared about. And one of the big reasons I was on the Trump train is I want those pedophile son of a suckers to be found out. Well, I don't care who you are, what money or power you have. If you're screwing with kids, I want your face out in public. I want to see you do the perp walk, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Well, and it's not only that, though. It's interesting that you point out, because those are some of the things that, but a lot of people want for whatever was hidden to come to light. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have come to light under the Trump administration just since he's been in office, including all these files when it comes to JFK.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to that.
He's going to release it. It's like, where's it at?
Well, that's the thing is they're showing that, like, man, there's a lot of stuff that was hidden there. And you could spend a lot of time on that subject and just never come to the end of it. Now, times that by 1,000, by 10,000, by 20,000. I mean, it's...
Now, let me dig in a little deeper with that one, okay? So there's some theater going on here. And this is what scares me, okay? Bondi requested from the other director. Didn't come out, right? Or they got a little bit. The Cash came and she wrote this letter. No one Cash knew that letter was coming. And the worry was worded and all that, demanding, da-da-da. It's theater. It still hasn't come out, but they're working on it. They're redacting things, apparently, and she's requested it. So I'm hoping in 2 years that all of this plays into the bigger picture, because there's processes that have to be followed and legal things, and they want to drag people along into the story, if you will. But the thing that bothers me is there's so much of that going on. It's just another public showing song and dance. The fact that people are leaving when these bills are getting signed early for the weekend, when you know how that place runs and operates and you see the bigger picture, there's already a deal being made. The government's not going to get shut down. What are they doing and why are they doing it? Because some of these people said they wouldn't do it. What deals are being made that we don't know about? So there's so much song and dance and BS from the left and the right. We've got to stop. We've got to really look at the bigger picture and go, this time you said all of these things, and some of us really backed that, and it's not happening. I'm okay with deporting the criminals and all. I'm good with all that. But this other stuff was important to a lot of us. And if they don't do it in 2 years from now, I ain't gonna be happy about it.
Well, it's because everybody
and I
knew
think it's me and the majority of America,
yeah,
frankly.
Everybody knew that there was something stinky happening at that level. It's just stinky. It just stinks.
Still stinks.
And it still stinks. And
Matter of fact, I think it got worse.
I think.
And by the way, it's 19 months. The election is 19 months. Time stops for no one.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll see which way the pendulum goes. Because if you want to try to say that the American population is predictable, that's one thing that it's not.
No.
Right? Which leads me to my next thing. We were going to talk about trade wars, but we will in the future. It's very interesting. The reason why I want to bring it up is I knew it'd be near and dear to Chad's heart, given the fact that we had talked about in the past some of the things that led up to World War I and World War II, and it had to do with resources. It had to do with resources and future economies of governments, and whether or not we want to say that was the cause, because of course it's looking back. We'll try to frame history in today's context and light.
That's not a universal reason for why everybody got involved, but it is a reason for why one or two nations got involved.
Well, and we see that shaping up today. There's a lot going on, man. If you want to watch what's going on as far as these trade wars and tariffs and everything, we'll just have to cover that. That'll be a main topic on a next program or the following one, because it just keeps coming in waves. We're going to do this. We're going to do this.
For people that know, Canada, Mexico, watch that trade war.
Yeah.
It happens all around us all the time, just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? I'll say this. Time and time again, and I've known this for many years, right? We always come out of the short end of the stick. When it comes to these trade agreements and tariffs, we have for a very long time put America last. We've stimulated a global economy that's never been seen, even including with China and our consumerist nation. We are like the largest, if not one of the largest consumerist nations on the planet, and buying power has power, right? It has power. So I think that's kind of what's being leveraged right now. And like I said, we won't have enough time to cover this. So I'm sorry I even said anything, guys. But okay. So
just real quick, look at Japan in the 60s. The agreements we made and why, and look at that trade agreement from the 60s and tell me that that's reasonable for any of our taxpayers. Just saying, that's one. Just look at that.
Yeah.
Spend 15 minutes. That's all I'm asking.
We've slit our own throat and made it a habit to do that. It's been America. I hate to use this phrase because it is this phrase that just keeps getting pounded in the messaging, right? But we have really done a lot of America last policies to where we haven't focused on what's in the best interest of the United States and chose to do that rather than focus on what might be better for other people and just take ourselves and push ourselves down so we can lift other people up. You got something. What are you going to say, Andy?
I had my props and everything.
Oh, yeah. The boy.
My YouTube video. the YouTube video and they're talking about the bag of bolts that we buy. You guys heard about this? Okay. So there's a bag of bolts, and I have the YouTube video to show and the receipts of why Doge is doing what they're doing. A bag of bolts. I'm going to do this right here, and you will watch the video. Maybe I'll put it in the link underneath your thing after you post this. The bag of bolts. How much do you guys think this cost?
That bag
Similar
of
to
bolts,
this, yeah.
probably $120, probably over $100.
About this bag of bolts right here costs about $45. It's about equivalent to what the bag of bolts that the guy in the presentation holds up. Do you know what our Pentagon's paying for this bag of bolts?
Oh, we're gonna go back to the Al Gore conversation.
Do you know what they're paying?
$1 million.
$90,000. $90,000. This is receipts.
Well,
That's going on rampantly. And you know, when those people get those contracts and those same people who sign off on that end up working for those companies, and they're doing that spades across all of those big empires in Washington, that's a problem. And we're the ones paying for it. And that's not right. We've got to figure this out. So you don't have to like the people running Doge, but the concept needs to be figured out. We've got to stop doing that. That's just straight up.
I have never forgotten the Al Gore conversation about ashtrays that occurred on the David Letterman show. So go back and take a look at that one. Okay. That was amazing.
I'll YouTube that.
That was amazing because Al Gore was trying to describe to the American people why it is the way it is with what you just said. He was sitting there with a glass ashtray that should cost about $6, but our government was paying thousands for it. And it was, at that time, it was all tied up in all of the stupid rules and regulations that went into the purchase of that particular ashtray.
Yes.
And
regulation.
And
Tax,
the reason
tax,
I remember
tax,
it
tax.
so well is he's like, well, you have to test everything. So let's test this ashtray under the rules and regulations of testing this particular ashtray. And understand we have to do this for every single one we purchase.
yeah.
And he pulled out a hammer and a nail and he smashed the darn thing on Letterman's desk. I was like, holy crap. So we have to destroy it. And then we have to go through and measure every single piece to see how big it was after it shattered. So we got to pay somebody to do that.
Imagine doing that with bullets.
Well,
And
then
that
think-
was
I
just,
mean, just-
and that was just the
but it's
first
crazy.
step.
And only certain people can make bullets. And once you get a con for a certain amount of years, you lock them in, and it's just a mess.
Yeah.
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 It's a mess.
Yeah, and then I mean that conversation another day is tax.
And
tax,
our schools
tax,
are struggling.
Tax.
And our teachers aren't making the money they need to be making, and we don't have money for R&D in the school system that we need to help our future be brighter. But we're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, last thing I wanted to bring up before we do our final thoughts. This is something that's always been interesting to me. Maybe it will be interesting to you guys. You know, we talked about communication. We've talked about social media a little bit here. We've talked about the vandalism of Teslas, right? All this. Okay. But if it's called an internal dialogue or an internal voice, all right? And I call that critical thinking skills or reflection. Okay.
That sounds serious to me.
It's serious. Oh, it's serious, right? It's, you know how it is, right? I'm such a serious guy, man. Okay, so
I gotta take a piss.
but
Hurry up, I gotta piss.
Okay, so you take for instance this. You see some information come your way. Okay, Ukraine good, Russia bad, Russia good, Ukraine bad. Did you know 50 to 70% of people do not take that information and say, why do I think
Oh,
this?
yeah.
Like literally 50 to 70% of people report having no internal dialogue, no internal monologue.
When you got legacy media like Chad just pushing out the narrative,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, nobody
it doesn't
else,
help.
Like,
Have you
it
ever asked
blows
people
my
why
mind. People
why they don't like somebody or something, and they go, well, just be, and you're like, well, give me a specific. Well, I can't really think of one right now, but they're hell bent on their feeling.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's wild to watch.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and is that not a breakdown in communication? The idea that I cannot formulate an argument about why. I literally was looking at this and thinking about bringing it on the program, and I'm just thinking to myself, when people are walking down the road, are they just, what's going on up here? What's going on up here? Is it just and then
You sound too serious. You're trying to get us to think.
Somebody's gonna take it, and somebody's gonna take offense to this. Somebody's gonna say I'm
Chad, you're
projecting
thinking
this on
this might
somebody
be
else.
too serious, but come on.
But
Bring it
come
to
on.
me.
I mean, there you like
Lance.
consume. I'm chewing. I'm swallowing. I mean, I cannot. I'm somebody that's so far on the other side that I can't turn it off.
Yeah, but you're kind of crazy.
Let me.
I'm crazy and all that.
There is a significantly sized group of people who make a phone call to me during every election that makes me so angry. I am glad we still have a phone I can slam. I am so tired of this call. Are you going to print a sample ballot? Well, in the world we live in today, I don't really have the space and resources to publish that. And you can go to the county website
online
and get one. Why do you need a sample ballot so badly? Because I need to check and I need to know who to vote for. Okay, you're not going to figure that out from a sample ballot, folks. And when I question, and
I don't know.
This is what drives me nuts, because I will ask, well, how is the sample ballot going to tell you who to vote for? Because I need to know their party.
It works.
Okay, so I've published full profiles on these people.
He's gonna blow.
I see it coming.
You hear what I'm saying? I've published full profiles on these people.
You know the movie with the
can
marbles
read
and the little feelings? Chad's my red dude. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Anger. That's anger.
That's anger. That's anger, and it's inside out. Inside out.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah, that's me. I'm like
walking around going, don't do it.
I've published a profile answering questions in order to inform you of these people's stances. That's not what you're going to vote on, because you have to put freaking thought into it. You want to talk about
why we're in trouble.
Can you have at least 1 minute of an internal monologue for yourself about this election that's coming up? Okay? You want to walk into the voting booth and you don't want to vote for Andy based on what you've heard here today.
Well, but I'm not Republican enough, though.
I know.
But
that's
then
what I'm saying.
Democrat.
Well, that's just because somebody told them that.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's
not
true,
Republican
though.
enough.
I'm a rhino.
Andy's not Republican enough. Oh, okay. So why do
drink
you
beer.
think that? Why do you think
I like beer.
Why,
I drink beer.
I'm not a Mennonite because I drink
ask
beer.
The question.
Yeah.
Here's this internal monologue here, this internal dialogue. It says, well, why is this person telling me this? What's their ulterior motive? Do they have an ulterior motive? What makes a Republican? What makes Andy not Republican enough? What makes Andy Republican enough? Why do I vote? I'm sitting here firing on all cylinders, folks. All cylinders, questioning, constant questioning, and it's unbelievable to me that somebody will sit there and go, well, you know what I heard? Really? Well, that must be the truth. That just must be it. They don't even think about it. They don't think.
You know what I heard?
There's a lot of that going on.
It's unbelievable.
I heard that Chad is a
to me.
scratch golfer. That's what I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I heard?
I heard that.
Andy bowls at 300.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
he's
time.
drunk.
Every time.
What, like every
Every
day?
time.
Every day at noon is when you start, Andy? That's what I heard. Okay. So final words, guys. Hopefully we didn't get too political
Scratch
for you
golfer now.
here.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna keep repeating that all of a sudden.
I'm scratched.
And
man.
I would
How was
also
that
like
golf
to say,
thing going for you, by the way? You picked it up with the boys, or you guys? It's winter, so you're probably gonna get back into it here pretty quick.
Let me tell you something. We have a very special. Here's my last word too. Okay. I'm going to give you my last word.
All right.
And answer that question. At Newton High School, we have an incredibly special class of freshmen. I'm telling you, they are special. They are special people.
Yeah, they are.
And they are special when it comes to wanting to be involved. They want to go out and have fun. And they are special. And they single-handedly doubled the size of our Newton High School golf team. Are they scratch golfers? Are they great players? Not really. But they're special people. And dude, we got to support these kids. We got to support every kid that goes through our school system. But I'm telling you, this freshman class is special, and we really need to get behind these kids.
They're working hard.
One of my kids is in that class. I'm going to be straight. And one of my kids is the reason that the golf team got so big all of a sudden. Okay? So that's how golf is working out for my family. But
cool.
These are special. And when I say they're special, not only did they double the size of the golf team all by themselves, they did it to the football team too. And they don't stop there. They go out and they recruit kids. And they're like, have you tried this? It's really fun. And they do things like look at a kid that says, well, no, but I don't really know how I would do that. My family, well, my dad's got a whole spare set of golf clubs in the basement. Let me grab it and I'll see you at practice on Friday. These are special kids.
Neat.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for spring sports because we're going to see these kids, especially that class, we're going to see those kids everywhere this spring, including on the golf course.
Andy, final word.
I want to run off of you and say the 8th grade basketball team had so many kids that came out, and I think they all stuck. And they're kids you wouldn't see playing basketball because they're recruiting each other to the team and to the culture and to the community of let's just play together. And they're showing up and they're having fun and they're cheering their friends on when they get in the game when they normally don't, but they're showing up to the practices and they're building a community. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give that to, I do think that freshman class is special. I have an affinity for all of our classes at some level, but that freshman class is changing the game, and that 8th grade class coming up under them is no schlump because I think they're learning from them. And so it'll be cool to see them as freshmen and sophomores next year. Don't want to push them too fast because time is short and I love them. But at the end of the day, we have so much potential, and there's so many wonderful things going on in this community. If we focus on the possibilities and not the challenges, and what you focus on grows, we will continue to see wins, and we will continue to see the good things and lift our heads away from the things that we cannot control and focus on the things that we can, which is our attitude and our activity and what we're doing every single day, one step at a time when it gets hard, because it gets hard for all of us at times. Just know that we are all making impacts in different ways, and we have to choose, are we going to make a positive or a negative impact today? And I see so much in our youth and so much potential. I'm super excited about our future because the future looks bright.
Yeah.
And let's give a tip of the cap to Sand Creek Station on that one too, because they are unabashed in their support of our high school teams. I mean, seriously, one of the first things that the high school golfers find out when they sign up is that during season, anytime, free. We're talking Sand Creek Station, guys. We're talking about a high-level tournament golf course. They're going to have the National Junior College Championships there this year. And those guys out there, like you're on the high school team, you want to play this afternoon? And you got kids that are looking at them going, I heard it's like $40-$50.
Yeah.
Well, if you walk, you're on the team. Just go.
And that's good on so many levels.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that,
So, there
I
you
was
go.
going to say something for my final word, but I'm going to match your guys' energy and say, I've said at the beginning of the program, it's nice outside. It's spring. People are starting to get out. I live right next to the bike path. That is a huge gym for our community, also known as the Sand Creek Path, that stretches all throughout. And they're going to have an addition to that extends it out farther. Huge gym in our community. And along the way, there's parks. And as we were getting out, I was noticing something different this year that I haven't seen in a while. And I'll say it is what it is. There's a lot of people getting out and getting to the parks, getting outside. And there was a time when you walk by a park and it was almost vacant. Nobody out there, nobody doing. So maybe we're seeing a change in our culture, not only here locally, but I hope abroad, of people just starting to go back, not to go back to the way that it was, but to get out, participate in the community, participate in things that are beneficial in our community. We've got so many things going on. Check out your Choose Newton calendar. Look up what's going on with your Newton Area Chamber of Commerce and activities and festivals and festivities and all the things that are coming, because they just are going to come quick. They're going to happen, and then we'll start hibernating again next year. Have a good week, everybody.